U.S. President Donald Trump said on Monday he expects a U.S.-Ukraine rare earth minerals deal be signed with Ukraine very soon. Meanwhile, peace talks in the Saudi capital continued between Russia and the U.S. on Monday as Kyiv and Moscow dealt blows in continuous attacks. Joining me now to discuss what could happen next with the Ukraine-Russia peace talks is General Ben Hodges, former commander of the U.S. Army Europe and Africa. Good evening, sir, and thank you for joining me on the program.
Thank you for the privilege.
I would like to begin by taking a look at some of the comments made by Steve Witkoff, special envoy. In an interview with pro-Trump journalist Tucker Carlson, he repeated various Russian arguments, for example, saying that Ukraine is a false country. And he actually asked when would the West recognize occupied Ukrainian territory as Russian. What do such sentiments say about the future of support, of U.S. support for Ukraine?
Well, it's very concerning to me, and I think Ukrainians and others in Europe are concerned about this. The fact that our lead mediator parrots or Kremlin talking points better than Lavrov does, and it also has revealed a lack of understanding of the history, the geography, and what's actually going on. But I don't think they care, because I don't think that they know the Russians are absolutely not interested in a legitimate negotiated outcome of this conflict. And they've not been asked to make any concessions. All the demands have been made against the Ukrainian side. And so I think when you take all that, plus the continued attacks killing innocent Ukrainian people each night, unfortunately, I am very skeptical about these talks.
As sort of a, I would say, countermeasure, we have the talks of the Coalition of the Willing, which intensified over the past few weeks. Is the coalition a likely solution? And what would be the distribution of power? And most recently, would China be able to join?
Well, I think I've heard this suggestion about China. I think this would be a colossal mistake by all of us, particularly the United States, to somehow allow the door to be open for China to come in and be a part of any sort of peacekeeping force. You know, the Trump administration before the election, all they talked about was China as being the main rival. And now you're talking about a situation where China would be able to come in and not only play a key role, but they could end up controlling the area with all the minerals and all the other economic factors. So, I mean, it just makes no sense from an American standpoint. But I think Europe here has to really assume the leadership role. If it looks like the United States is not going to do it, Europe is going to pay the price. The consequences of a terrible outcome in this war mean millions more refugees coming into Poland, Romania, Germany, and elsewhere. No rebuilding, continued disruption of grain shipments. All of this is bad news for Europe. Europe's economy dwarfs Russia. And if you add together the military capabilities of all the European nations, they are significantly more capable than Russia. So I'm optimistic that Europe will discover its strategic backbone and do what needs to be done here to help Ukraine.
And following what you just said, sir, do you think that EU is currently in the right place to, in case the U.S. administration decides to further withdraw from supporting Ukraine, the European Union is going to be able to support Ukraine to an extent to provide it with a certain sort of victory?
Well, it certainly has the economic power to do that. Earlier, you had referenced a coalition of the willing. I don't know that we'll get every nation in Europe contributing to some sort of ceasefire implementation force or doing what's necessary. But certainly with the decision by the German Bundestag last week, Germany is emerging as a leader, at least leading by example here. And when you combine that get momentum from Germany, plus what President Macron and Prime Minister Starmer have said in the past. And when I look at Poland and Finland, these are countries, Italy, countries that have real military capability. All that's missing is the political will and something or somebody around which they can all coalesce to help Ukraine defend itself and in turn defend Europe. Otherwise, we're going to have a real long-term problem.
Ukraine claims air defense is paramount. They claimed many times that air defense is paramount when it comes to protecting not only the airspace, but the military and the country. Could Germany actually send Taurus long-range missiles in case, for example, they would need replacement for the American ATACMS?
Well, certainly, who is probably going to be the Bundeskanzler, the German chancellor, once the coalition government is formed here in the next few weeks, he has said in the past that he would give Taurus to Ukraine. I hope that Germany will follow through on that. That would be a significant upgrade in capabilities. But of course, it's never just one weapon system. It's capabilities, but it's also the commitment, the very public commitment that Germany, France, UK, Poland, Finland, other countries say that it is in their interest that Ukraine is successful. And therefore, you're going to do everything necessary to help Ukraine win. Now, when you get the policy part right, the clearly defined strategic objective, then all the policies necessary can move forward. But if you don't get the objective right, then it's difficult to get the right policies in place.
Our time is slowly coming to an end, but before we go, how do you think that the Black Sea ceasefire is actually going to look like? What form will it take, and how do you think it's going to affect not only Ukraine's economy, but also naval safety?
Well, I thought your colleague Oz did a terrific job explaining this earlier in the segment. I mean, Ukraine has already created the conditions for successful use of the Western Black Sea. The great Russian Black Sea fleet is nowhere to be found. But if it helps in any way build momentum towards a ceasefire, I'm not against it. But you can be sure that Russia will test any ceasefire. And if there's not a force in place to compel them to live up to it, then they will make a mockery of it, as they typically do.
General, thank you so much for joining me on the program. General Ben Hodges, former Commander of U.S. Army Europe and Africa, was my guest.
Thank you.
And so this would be all for now here on World News Tonight, but please do stay tuned. We're back here on TVP World in just a moment with more news and features.